Welcome everyone, Tactical Lich here, and today we are having a battle against Lenorm with our Chaos Knights build. Yes, indeed, it is a battle of heavy Chaos Cavalry, as the Knights these days receive some buffs from the Shadows of Change DLC. So, for the army build, I'm going for Warriors of Chaos, a front line of Marauders backed up by a couple aspiring champions, and for the leadership we have a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Shadow coming in with Pendulum and a Malkov's Mystifying Miasma, supported by a couple Throwing Axes Marauder horses. As for the Knights department, we are going for Rainbow Knights. Yes, we have Chaos Knights of Khorne with lances, Chaos Knights of Nurgle, Chaos Knights of Tzeentch, and also Chaos Knights of Slaanesh with lances. The fact that we can't bring 4 of the same type of Chaos Knights means that I have to go for a 2x2 approach instead. Now, for the opposite side, Lenorm's Tzeentch army, a full front line of Chaos Knights of Tzeentch with lances. These guys are quite good with their shield and have good charge bonus and weapon strength as well. In this guy's Knights of Immolation supporting Kairos Fateweaver coming in with his usual loadout with Blue Fire, Regrowth, the Scroll of Destiny, Gates of Fate, and also Oracle of Destiny. Infantry-wise, we have some Zangos on the field, which are some very strong addition to the Tzeentch roster with their solid stats, backed up by Blue Horrors of Tzeentch. That's it for the army builds, and now let's get the battle started. This battle is basically a showdown between Chaos Heavy Cavalry, as both me and my opponent Lenorm are heavily investing into the Chaos Knights department here, with me getting Rainbow Knights and him getting triple Chaos Knights of Tzeentch with lances. Anyways, the Kairos Fateweaver would be opening up with a blue fire into some of my knights, hoping to use those concentrated firepower to whittle down those unit models, and successfully killed a few of them off, taking quite a bit of HP away from the Knights of Nurgle. However, they are indeed Knights of Nurgle and should have enough tankiness to hold their own in combat even with a little less HP. As for the front line there, with my Chaos Knights and the Marauder Horsemen kind of lacking behind, the Marauders will get charged by a whole bunch of Chaos Knights in the face, and because they are the ones with lances and barding, they have extra charge bonus at 80 and are doing maximum impact damage onto my Marauders while getting out unscathed because that Tzeentch barrier is protecting them. At the same time, Kairos dumping down yet another blue fire, doing very minor damage to my army really. Only a few Marauders were hit, while the rest of my Knights were just piling into the formation here, trying to get to the blue horrors who are already opening at the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, chipping away their health and taking down quite a few models. On the flanks there, while on the flanks, my Tzeentch opponent, definitely having better micro than me, was able to sandwich my poor Marauders with a bit of hammer and anvil. I'll be retaliating with a bit of Malkovs. But unfortunately, my Marauder Horsemen, my best way to counteract Kairos and the Knights of Immolation, have suffered a lot of counterfire from the Blue Horrors. Now their leadership is giving out and will be retreating from combat. So far, the Chaos Knights of Nurgle are taking significant damage, as they are the ones taking the brunt of any damage. Even the Knights of Immolation, who charged in from the skies, are directly targeting them. Thankfully, the counterpunch of my Knights were enough to knock out the shields on all these Chaos Knights of Tzeentch. This actually allows me to use Malkov's Mystifying Miasma to directly drain away the health of all these Chaos Knights. It is definitely one of the best anti-cavalry spell, with the cost being relatively cheap, while still able to output some steady damage that ignores melee defense and armor. Speaking of melee defense and armor, the aspiring champions are holding the line with exactly these two things. Their mere presence providing the encouragement aura is inspiring those Marauders to fight on even after heavy casualties. As for my other Rainbow Knights, my Knights of Tzeentch slammed into some blue horrors, same goes for the Khorne Knights with lances. They have no problem at all curve stomping those poor Tzeentch demons, but the 3 Chaos Knights of Tzeentch with lances coming their way might be a bit of an issue. 3-on-1 engagement right now, and the Knights of Khorne are definitely feeling the pain, but they do have 52 melee attack, all thanks to Frenzy and extra weapon strength. The Khorne Knights are definitely punching back hard. Combined with the Malkovs, they actually dealt enough damage to counteract the Overcast Regrowth. The Shadow Sorcerer Lord has been steadily outputting damage with his spells so far. Outside of this blob fight, the rest of the Tzeentch army is in pretty rough shape because most of their elites, all those Chaos Knights of Tzeentch, are concentrated onto one single Khorne Knight. This prevents them from supporting other engagements, giving my cavalry the perfect chance to run down the isolated Tzeentch units, overwhelming them with my quality and numbers. Even the Knights of Immolation have taken way too much damage in those blocked up engagements. Now they are pursuing the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, which I decided, you know what, they are a little too fast for my cavalry to catch up, and I'll just be focusing on running down the Tzeentch infantry, and the Dungors and the Blue Horrors will be falling victim to this pursuit. As for the Aspiring Champions, they are holding just fine, taking barely any damage and still having full unit models. Same goes for the other Aspiring Champion unit. The Tzeentch army really doesn't have much to kill them right now. Only Kairos has any armor piercing. Their bombardment ability, the Searing Torrent, usually does quite well against regular infantry, but against a low entity count unit like the Aspiring Champions, they really don't do any damage. Best they can do is probably bomb my Marauder Horsemen. On the far side there, the Marauder Horsemen have returned, while the Knights of Nurgle are retreating from a massive bombardment. A Gaze of Fate pinning down the Slaanesh Knights though, and they're stuck in the middle of the entire bombardment. Basically, half their HP will be gone after this bombardment ends. Losing a unit with immune to psychology this early can be a heavy blow for me in the late game. I'll be retaliating once again with Malkov's Mystifying Miasma. The damage of the spell isn't the greatest, but it is rather cheap and very stable. So the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch will be steadily taking damage, also preventing them from regenerating that shield. The Aspiring Champions and the Marauders once again beat back a bunch of Tzeentch infantry. The Dungors are no match against the heavily armored elites of the Chaos roster here, so the Knights of Tzeentch with Lances will be slamming into the Aspiring Champions, but the Tzeentch Rohirrim doesn't seem to be doing that much damage. Other than the heavy armor and melee defense, the Aspiring Champions also have more mass than regular infantry, giving them more resilience against enemy cavalry charge. While we're here, the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch with Lances are trying to trade against the Chaos Knights of Khorne with Lances, who have already gotten over 100 kills, earning back a significant portion of their value. With the help of another Malkov's Mystifying Miasma, the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch was actually pressured away. And then there are some Chaos Knights of Tzeentch. These are the sword and board ones that I bring myself. They are helping the Khorne Knights to chase off their Tzeentch comrades, while their health is preserved mostly by that Tzeentch shield. So right now, all that's left for my opponent is a few Knights unit and the Knights of Immolation. Well, technically that is also a Knight unit, though the blue fire kite from a healthy Kairos can be a problem. Although with the formation being so scattered, the blue fire isn't really doing that much damage, especially with the angle not being that optimal. My Khorne Knights with Lances will be chasing off this routed unit of Tzeentch Knights with Lances, while there are some returned throwing axes Marauder Horsemen chucking their armor-piercing missiles at the closest Tzeentch unit. In response, the Knights of Immolation will use their superior speed to fly over, pressuring them off and preventing them from doing more damage to the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch. In contrast, my slow and sluggish infantry means that I don't have any assets to pursue my opponent's mobility. A nice regrowth from Kairos Fate Weaver has always been a nuisance against anyone playing against Tzeentch, and this time it is no exception. The regrowth topping up the health of these Chaos Knights of Tzeentch. Both their health and figure were refreshed and they're ready for another round. Without any ways to heal my units, I'll be consolidating whatever's left on my army. The remaining Chaos Knights of Slaanesh, and then there's also the Knights of Tzeentch, the Aspiring Champions and Marauders. They will be reinforcing each other, making sure that the Tzeentch army can't isolate them and pick them off one after the other. Now, Kairos Fate Weaver, finally realizing that I actually didn't bring a Nurgle Lord, will be dropping in a blue fire trying to snipe out my Lord. I'll be attempting to do some dodging, actually dodging quite a few of those projectiles from the blue fire spell, while the Slaanesh Knights with their lances are slamming into the Dungors. I also followed up with a charge from my Tzeentch Knights, but a clutch Gaze of Fate pinning them dead in their tracks. While this doesn't really save the Dungors, this does give the Tzeentch army a perfect opportunity to rain fire from above using the tier 3 army ability. The Dungors are routed, but the Chaos Knights of Tzeentch are taking massive damage. The bombardment almost annihilated the entire unit, but the Tzeentch barrier helped them hang on by a thread. Now they're charging straight into my opponent's Knights, allowing me to pile in with all these units onto the one remaining Chaos Knights of Tzeentch, using that Malkov's Mystifying Miasma to further drain away their health, even dropping in a pendulum, just hoping really to whittle down all these remaining Tzeentch mobility. While the Warriors of Chaos side, I still have some Aspiring Champions, but with too much psycho charging from the Tzeentch cavalry, especially with Kairos spamming those blue fire, this can still be a very tough fight for me. That's why I'm trying hard to shut down my opponent's cavalry, hopefully denying Kairos from more opportunities to do spell kiting with blue fire or psycho charging with its armor piercing damage. Anyways, we are in fast forward right now with the Knights of Immolation receiving a regrowth, topping up their remaining 13 models. At the same time, my remaining Tzeentch Knights who are barely holding on to their leadership is chasing off my opponent's Tzeentch Knights with the support of the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Shadows, but that does separate them from the support of my remaining infantry, allowing the Knights of Immolation and Kairos to rout them off with a single charge. Though the Knights of Immolation Regiment of Renown status was mostly wasted because the Searing Torrent was not used at all, not having any good targets on the field. Now, all they could do is try to psycho charge down whatever's left on my side. The Marauders are pretty easy to deal with. They can easily be terrified, or just simply one charge impact from all these Knights of Immolation would be able to finish them off. And then the blue fire spam will be chipping away the remaining health on my Chaos Sorcerer Lord. The problem is the Aspiring Champions. They're 46 melee defense now that they have earned some chevrons. Oh, actually 47 melee defense now that they have 2 chevrons. Will be holding against any cycle charging right now. You can see Kairos Fate Weaver taking a lot of damage with only 20 melee defense. The Aspiring Champion's 40 plus melee attack is really putting in the hurt against Kairos the Big Bird. While the Knights of Immolation 54 melee attack and 45 melee defense, but they do lack that armor piercing, having only 11 models remaining against the 50 models on these Aspiring Champions, and the other Aspiring Champions also having, is that 16 models? Yeah, 16 models, not having a single death throughout the entire game so far. They are definitely holding firm. The cycle charging from Kairos and also the Knights of Immolation has taken quite a bit of HP away from the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Shadows, forcing him to rout, but the Aspiring Champions are not even flinching. Indeed, they are taking some damage in this engagement, but the Knights of Immolation, their charging angle means that their unit models are stuck in this melee blob. This allows me to pile onto them with my Aspiring Champions and some regrouped Chaos Knights of Tzeentch here. Down to 300 HP and last 6 unit models, but they are still fighting, going after the few grounded Knights of Immolation who are stuck on the high mass Aspiring Champions. The Aspiring Champions are also fighting, now down to 14 unit models after taking that blue fire shot. The problem is that the Aspiring Champions don't have much speed, allowing one Knight of Immolation to escape back to the sky. My Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Shadows have also returned, but he did not have any magic remain, so no more spells to support, and the Knights of Immolation plus Kairos Fate Weaver should be able to finish him off, or at least chase him off the battlefield. The Tzeentch units will be going after the routing Sorcerer Lord. This actually fulfills the attacking rule, so it will still take quite some time for Kairos to return to the fight. But thankfully for me, the Knights of Immolation took even more losses, now down to the final 4 unit models, though unfortunately for me, my remaining Chaos Knights got cold feet and decided to run. The Knights of Immolation will attempt to chase them off and shatter them. Kairos at the meantime was dropping blue fire onto my Aspiring Champions. He is trying his best to cycle charge, but with only 35 melee attack and 20 charge bonus, he is really not doing that much damage, so Knights of Immolation has to throw themselves into battle, but then the counter attack of the Aspiring Champions was able to take down even more of those tattered knights. That leaves Kairos no choice but to charge in and remain in this melee fight. Ludom clearly knows that Kairos Fate Weaver has no business in a prolonged melee grind against elite units, so he'll be conceding this game with the victory going to the War Host of Apocalypse, the Chaos Undivided. GG to my opponent Norm, who goes by the name Bobok Owl. This was a really close game, and after the battle we actually chat a bit, and I realized the Sorcerer Lord only survived till the late game because Norm thought he was the Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle, so assuming that my Lord had healing to heal through the blue fire spam, Kairos blue fire didn't actually target the Lord. Otherwise, if the Lord gets sniped, he would not be able to carry the game with all those Malkov's mystifying miasma. Either ways, the Chaos Sorcerer Lord on my end survived, doing the damage to carry the game, while my Rainbow Chaos Knights carried most of their weight, earning back most of their value as well, with the Aspiring Champions being the true carries of the game, still having quite a few of their unit models left, having minimal losses and also earning back a lot of value by grinding through all those Dangor infantry, the Chaos Knights, the Knights of Immolation, and of course finally Kairos Fate Weaver himself. My Marauder Cavalry and Infantry didn't do that much damage though, as I did misuse them quite a bit. As for the Tzeentch army, the Tzeentch Knights with Lances didn't do that much damage, and the Knights of Immolation got a lot of value, just not quite enough to carry the game. Same goes for Kairos Fate Weaver. A lot of that blue fire spam was kind of wasted on my infantry, especially on my Aspiring Champions who are not that susceptible to blue fire kiting. For the Dangors, they actually met their match this time against the super elite Aspiring Champions. Yes, they can beat up Marauder Infantry, but against Aspiring Champions, their stat is still not quite enough. while the blue horrors just not doing much because their missiles can't really find the good targets other than the marauder horses. And yeah, that's it for today. I hope you all enjoy seeing the improved Chaos Knights in action. If you want to see more tutorial Warhammer content, be sure to subscribe to my channel and keep an eye out for new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich signing out.